So, hello everyone. I'm Susan Rennie, co-director along with Dr. Pat Rogan of the Work to Include initiative. And I want to welcome you all to what is an exciting opportunity to highlight the materials that we've put together for Disability Employment Awareness Month in October. So just to let you know, I am a Caucasian woman. I have brown hair. I'm wearing a navy jacket and a gray dress. And my co-presenters today are Jeffrey Shear and Kevin Morris and Justin Klupper, all from the Fort Wayne Work to Include initiative. And I think you'll see when we highlight their activities, the wonderful things that they've been doing up in the Fort Wayne area. So again, just some logistics. There's a chat box and we'd love for you to put questions in as it goes along. And Luke Labas from Indianapolis's Work to Include team is going to be monitoring that chat box for us. And we have some time at the end, we'll open up for questions. And I would like to make sure everyone knows that we are recording. We'll be sharing this information also on our website, just so you know. And there will be a video later on, and I'm just asking for you to volume up when you get there to make sure you can hear everyone that's on that video. So today what we wanted to do is to go over, why it's so important that we do Disability Employment Awareness Month, and really give you some statistics, some information about why now is the right time. And then we want to, again, unveil the Indiana Disability Employment Awareness Month materials that have been developed by the Work to Include initiative. And make sure you know that those are materials that were developed by and for individuals with disabilities that are part of our initiative. And then we want to highlight what's happening in the Fort Wayne area and the activities that they were involved in last year and what their plans are for this year. So you can get some ideas of things that you can do with these materials. So this is a map of the state of Indiana, and it shows based on information from 2019. And again, this is pre-COVID, so this is probably better information than we might see nowadays. But it shows the number of Hoosiers with disabilities who are employed, the percent that are employed by county. And if you look at those things across our state, you can see that there's fairly disparate employment rates for individuals with disabilities, higher in some areas and much lower in others, which is one reason why we want to take a local approach to really focusing on what the issues are in those communities. So again, even though the Employment First Law was passed back in 2017, we still have a huge number of people with disabilities who aren't employed. The total number of adults with disabilities not working in 2019 was almost 300,000. And we know from studies that 2/3 of individuals with disabilities who aren't working say they want to work. So what that tells us is there are almost 200,000 people with disabilities in our state that are looking for either returning or going to work for the first time. Right now, we know we have an overwhelming worker shortage in the state and in the nation. And to not really look at this talent pool, to not really access this pool, is an opportunity lost for our state, for employers, for our economy. So really, there are lots of reasons why people with disabilities are not working at this point in time. And we really need to look at how do we connect talent who are in the job search with those employers. And one of the things that we hope to do with this campaign is just to inform employers, because the other thing we know is when we ask employers, why haven't you hired people with disabilities? Oftentimes the answer is, I haven't been asked and I don't know where to go. So Work to Include was initiated through funding from Governor's Planning Council, Governor's Council for People with Disabilities, back in 2018. And we came together and wanted to build a coalition of people with disabilities and families that would advocate for employment. We know that there, again, are those large number of people who are looking for employment, and that there are barriers that are keeping them from that. And what we thought was the best people to design solutions to those barriers were the people that were facing them. So Work to Include was established to bring those people together to help identify how we do that. Our goals are threefold: to eliminate barriers and design a statewide system that works for everyone, particularly those individuals with the most significant disability; to develop local initiatives so we can address those county by county issues and dispel the myths about community employment that employers have. And then thirdly, to document the success of people with disabilities for two reasons. One is to show employers that the opportunity and the talent, and the other is to show people with disabilities what's possible for them. Because sometimes one of the biggest barriers for people with disabilities is simply expectations. So we know that we have to address all three of these, that along with the policy issues, we need to look at funding, transportation, benefit, training for employment consultants. We need to look at how to get information to local employers, and we need to highlight the success of people. So we have several partners in this initiative, and they include the Indiana Governor's Council, again, the source of funding for this project. INAPSE, which is an organization that promotes employment for individuals with disabilities, and INSILC, which is the Coalition of Independent Living Centers. This is our organizational structure. We have a total of 8 teams across the state, and those 8 teams are led by individuals with disabilities, and you'll get a chance to meet one of those individuals here shortly. So those individuals lead local teams that are comprised primarily of people with disabilities and community members. So around 70% of the teams are individuals with disabilities, family members, and then employers. So we're bringing together, again, people with disabilities with the business community to address this issue of employment. As a result, we have 500 members of the coalition across the state that we share information with on a monthly basis. We have a website where you can go and become part of that if you'd like. There's a place for you to both join local coalitions, but also just to sign up to get our newsletter so you can see what's happening statewide. And just recently, we hired a couple of individuals to help support those local teams. Karen Reese is primarily working with teams in the southern part of the state, and Ray Montgomery is working with the teams in the northern part of the state. And then Case Calvert is our communications director. He runs our social media efforts and is our webmaster. And if you haven't visited our website, I highly recommend it. And I'm going to make sure you do that here at the end, because that's where all these materials are housed. And then again, as I said, myself and Dr. Pat Rogan, who's on the call today, are co-directors of the initiative, and we work with an advisory council that's comprised of advocacy organizations like Self Advocates of Indiana, InSilk, and others, and state agencies. So the history, of course, this is a national event. There is an effort, or a national effort, to celebrate October as Disability Employment Awareness Month. But a lot of people don't know how far back this goes. This actually dates back to 1945, when Congress first declared the National Employee the Physically Handicapped Week. Well, we've come a long way. And although the name sometimes becomes a little awkward, it's a lot better than where it started. So somewhere just several years ago, the effort was renamed Disability Employment Awareness Month. And it happens every October. And there are national materials that are developed that you can access through the Office of Disability and Employment Policy out of the US Department of Labor. And so if you're interested in looking at their materials, they usually come out sometime in September. We decided just a couple of years ago to try to have an Indiana focused initiative and develop some materials so local communities could do things. And last year we had our first ever Indiana Disability Employment Awareness Month. And we actually had 6 communities that are part of Work to Include that had initiatives, had activities across the month of October. We had billboards, materials distributed, an employer toolkit developed, which hopefully you've had a chance to look at it on our website. And those were all distributed locally to local employers. We were able to reach out to over 1,000 employers just last year. We'd love to double that this year. And hopefully your involvement will help us do that. So those materials, again, are on our website, and they include posters that you can download and print, billboards with specifications so that you can do that locally, radio PSAs that are already recorded for you to share with people in your community, press releases, those set of fact sheets that I talked about for employers. And then this year we're going to be adding social media posts and an overall press release. So hopefully we have everything that you need to recognize the talent of people with disabilities and help employers become aware. So drum roll, please. I'm going to unveil to you for the first time our poster for October. This is the poster that was developed actually for Fort Wayne. And the nice thing is we've been able to customize these posters to each community. So we have posters that focus on Gary, Evansville, Clarksville, Muncie, in Indianapolis, Bloomington, Terre Haute, Fort Wayne, and Gary. So that idea was that we focus on local successes and we focus on local employers and get their takes so that when we share these with employers in your community, they actually know the people that are in these posters, in this material. So our theme for the month is everyone wins when everyone's in. And we try with the poster to focus on some of the statistics that we think will help employers understand why hiring talent with disabilities is it's the right thing to do.
Why did you get the charger for my iPad?
You said you want the charger for your iPad?
Yeah.
So we know that companies that hire people with disabilities, this has been demonstrated by a group called Disability In. Companies that hire people with disabilities have higher net income. So they are able to earn more dollars on the bottom line. That a large number of people that they employ have disabilities, and they just don't know that they have those individuals and what their accommodations might be. And then this last statistic is that 30% of white collar workers have disabilities. So it's not all entry-level positions. It's everywhere that people with disabilities, talent with disabilities, can find really fulfilling work. So this is the poster, and I'll unveil the billboard for you. This again is the billboard for Fort Wayne, and we customized billboards to each community as well. And this highlights an individual who's working at WoWo as a talk show producer. And again, the idea is to highlight not just that people with disabilities are working in the communities, but that employers are actively recruiting. So one of the things that we know is the best advice comes from people who actually employ individuals with disabilities, and that employers listen to others. And that is why we asked Justin Klipper to talk about his experience today. And I'm going to turn it over to him to tell you more about CTN.
Thank you so much, Susan. So CTN is a private nonprofit transportation provider here in Allen County in Northeast Indiana. In a given year, we provide about 100,000 trips to nearly 9,000 riders, ranging from medical related trips to work for people with disabilities to charter services for other nonprofits. You know, we are highlighting and pointing out Alan and his service because as an individual with cerebral palsy, he is not comfortable working on the phones. And so he was our first scheduling and dispatch person to not have any work on the phone. And instead, he's focused on data, on pulling information from Medicaid, from updating client information in our database, all of that, as well as some other administrative tasks around the office. So he's been a huge asset. And one of the things that we've believed in is fitting the job to someone's skills. And that's exactly what we've done with Alan here. So what I wanted to take some time today and talk a bit about are really three things that, as I talk to employers and I hear from employers, three things that tend to come up keeping them from hiring someone with a disability. The first is that there's a lack of understanding or an awareness about that as an option. If they're aware of it being an option, there's likely a fear of the unknown, or they're simply unfamiliar with the process. There's also a historical bias that exists within the employment community around hiring people with disabilities. And a lot of that comes from our historical bias of how we as a society have interacted with people with disabilities. So I wanted to dive into each of these three specifically to give you a little bit more ammunition and information that you can then take back and share in your communities with employers, with other agencies and things like that. So the first one is we dive into this lack of understanding or awareness. Really the first thing is they don't understand that there's a significantly untapped pool. The amount of people with disabilities who are currently unemployed is significantly higher than those able-bodied. It is a fantastic talent pool that if you can switch things a little bit around, you can have great access to different people. And switching things around, making accommodations, it is often scary. Employers don't know what that looks like. They don't know how hard is it going to be. You know, we are in a world today where we need things to be as easy as possible, easy and cheap. I'll put it that way. And what employers don't fully understand is that 60% of most of accommodations can be done without a cost. And then the federal government on top of that actually has tax incentives for people that hire folks with disabilities to make extra accommodations. And so if you need to make extra accommodations, if you need to buy specific equipment, they can work with their accountant to identify those tax benefits and get those tax credits. You know, sometimes, you know, for Alan, it was as easy as switching from a standard desktop machine to a touch screen and an easier mouse for him to manage with his hand. That's what we needed. Not only that, but we were able to work with vocational rehab to actually get some of those items in our office. We were able to work with partners like Goodwill to get some things in the office. Goodwill actually worked with us to provide training for the staff and provide training for Alan when he came into the office. So there are resources like that around the state that you can access and that employers can access. Finally, there's a lack of understanding around the opportunity. You know, there is a real opportunity for personal growth, professional growth for people, for individuals, for the company. I was reading a study last week that employers who hire people with disabilities see something like a 20% revenue increase because of the added expertise that they're bringing in. They bring in different perspectives for folks. And overall, it's just, they're great to have. They want to work. And employers don't always think about that. They don't always realize that. We have to help them understand that. So the next point, you know, that I wanted to touch on, the fear of the unknown or the unfamiliar. And I touched on this earlier, you know, related to accommodation costs. We don't know what these things are going to cost. Do I have to do something different with my bathroom, or do I have to do something different with doorways or entryways, or do I have to have all these different elements that employers aren't really sure what they have to do or what that's really going to cost. There's a concern about, am I taking on extra liability by hiring a person with disabilities? No, it all falls under your commercial insurance. They are covered just as much as any other employee. Workman's comp is covered just as much as any other employee. Our workman's comp does not change because we have employed a person with a disability. There's no difference there. Finally, an employer doesn't know what they don't know. They don't know the opportunities. They don't know where to find information if they don't have a resource that they can call on to connect with. You know, we have a tremendous resource in our community through Greater Fort Wayne Inc., the Chamber of Commerce, and Kevin Morse, who you're going to hear in a little bit. He is a specific resource that can work with employers in our community to educate them and help them know what they don't know, to help them navigate the various elements of hiring someone with a disability. You know, thinking about that in your community, who are those folks? Who can be the point people for employers? Because our time is limited. We need someone who has boots on the ground that can give us information quickly, easily, and can help us move forward with this. Then the last thing that you know, we want to talk about is historical bias. Unfortunately, our society has a short-sighted bias against people with disabilities, just like we do with African Americans, with Latinos, with women, with any minority. We have these biases, and employers have to get past that. Employers have to see that there is real opportunity in hiring these folks. Not only does the employer have to realize that, but the team has to see that. The team has to get past their bias. That they have to be able to see that there's real value in hiring someone with a disability. And that can be a challenge. And then finally, you know, the employer has to think about the customer's bias. They have to think about what is their customer going to think about if they are speaking to someone with a disability. Are they going to have a bias? And, you know, from my perspective, if I have a customer that doesn't want to work with us because they have a bias against a person with disability, frankly, I don't want them as my customer. But employers have to think about that. Those are the areas that they have to think about as they're navigating this process. You know, so often we think about, we don't realize everything that has to go through a owner's head, a business owner's head when they're making a decision like this. And my statement to you is, as easy as you can make it, as comfortable as you can make it, as connectable as you can make it, the better off everybody is. So, so when we look at those three things, you know, where does that put us? What needs to be done? We have to educate and inform folks. We have to take time to have webinars like this and have regional webinars where you are connecting with the business community, connect with your chambers, connect with human service agencies in your community and help them connect folks. And that goes right along with connecting them to other agency partners and connecting them with people. How do they find people with disabilities who want to hire, who want to be employed? How do they connect with those folks? Are there employment services that specialize in working with people with disabilities? Or are there workplace training centers that an employer can work through to identify someone, you know, an agency like Goodwill? And then finally, you know, when you're talking to a business owner, when you're talking to an employer, use terms that they understand. And unfortunately, that's things like, hey, you've got tax credits available to you for making accommodations. Dollars make sense to people. This is going to improve your morale. One of the things that we have learned out of COVID is that culture and morale have taken a beating, and employers need to see that bringing on someone with a disability can actually improve your morale. It can bring new things to your office. Alan is one of the happiest, most passionate people in our office, and that bleeds over to everybody else. Finally, it's again, speaking in dollars and cents, more often than not, an employer that hires someone with a disability sees improved revenues. Just putting it simply like that. So, you know, those are the things that I would do as you're looking at talking to employers, as you're thinking about their needs and their concerns and all that. So, I don't think I had any other slides. Did I, Susan?
No, you're good. You're good. We're going to turn this over to your colleague, Jeff Shear.
Jeff, take it away.
Thank you, Susan. Hello, everyone. I am very privileged to be the team leader for the Fort County Coalition, and my job today is to give you all the strategies about how to run an effective campaign. The first strategy that I would like to talk about is remember to be proactive not only in your disability members of the team, but be proactive in the community members that you have, because in for Wayne, not only do we have a vibrant and the disability community, but we have our community that wants to support people with disabilities. So don't be afraid to network. That is very key. Number two, as already been mentioned, but don't be afraid to reach out to your business community, because they need, we need to be united in giving people with disabilities hired. We have Kevin Morris, who is the Director of Employee Resources for our local chamber, which you'll hear for in a little bit. But remember to be united as one with your business community. Number three, as you're thinking about your activities for October, please diversify your funding sources, because we did that last year, and that really helped us get billboards and raise awareness, and we were also able to do a lot of media spots because of that money that we have from several organizations. So the more you can involve the community, the better off you'll be with your employment October employment awareness month efforts. And finally, have fun and build relationships. I can tell you that being a team leader for the Fort Wayne Allen County team has been one of the greatest honors of my life. I used to go out to lunch with my co-leader, Luke Davis, and we would just talk about life. So it's important that you have fun and remember there's a personal human element to this. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. We do have a Facebook page, with to include Fort Wayne. So I guess with that, I will now introduce a video about why some of our community partners support wintering include. So turn up your volume and enjoy the video, and thank you everyone. Thank you everyone. The reason I support wintering it's about independence. It's about inclusion, and it's about the importance of this rather than myself. Those are the reasons why I support Work to Include. This is this year. Work to Include team leader. Bye.
Hi, I'm Allen County Commissioner Nelson Peters, and I support the Work to Include Coalition's efforts to connect talent with disabilities, with employers, and to celebrate the many and varied contributions of the workers with disabilities in Allen County.
Hello, my name is Latoya Allen, and I'm with the state of Indiana Vocational Rehabilitation. And I work with Work to Include to make sure everyone has an opportunity to find meaningful employment and job training.
I am Rich Beck, Allen County Commissioner, and I endorse and support the efforts of Work to Include as they seek to help those individuals with disabilities gain employment.
Hi, I'm Justin Klepper, Executive Director at CTN, and we support the Work to Include initiative because we believe in the value and importance of hiring people with disabilities. We believe that they bring a wide variety of talents, expertise, and skills that can be used in the workforce today. And when we have worker shortages, not only in our community, but across the state, Work to Include is working hard to educate employers about the opportunities present with hiring people with disabilities, and we could not be more supportive.
I'm Teresa Brown, Allen County Commissioner, and I support Work to Include and its efforts to educate about disability employment and celebrate the many and varied contributions of Allen County citizens with disabilities.
Hi, I'm Kevin Morse, and I support Work to Include because it supports people with disabilities in their effort to find employment. As a former employer myself, hiring a person with disabilities and many people with disabilities, the best thing that I ever did.
Hello, I'm Mayor Tom Henry. I'm encouraged that companies and organizations in Fort Wayne, Indiana, have shown their willingness to include and embrace individuals with disabilities as part of their employment base. By providing a larger trained workforce, we'll be improving the quality of life for employees and employers, and Fort Wayne will be a more inclusive community.
I would now like to turn it over to Kevin Lewis.
Thanks, Jeff. It's my pleasure to be here this morning to talk about a couple of different topics. First off, my introduction, I am the Director of Disability Initiatives for Greater Fort Wayne, Inc. For those who don't know Greater Fort Wayne, Inc., it's a combination of economic development, workforce development, and the Chamber of Commerce. My position is relatively unique. It was something that was started in 2018, and my initial job description was pretty close to being an employment specialist, helping individuals find work, to actually work with somebody with a disability that needed a job. And that position has evolved greatly over the last 3.5 years to where I spend more time connecting. I talk with employers about my experience of more than 20 years as that managing supervisor that hired people, and let them know what I experienced by hiring people with disabilities and just how great it was for my company and for my crew. Now we've also extended that to being that person that, like when Justin had a small problem with somebody at his place that needed a little bit of help, I was the connector to find the person to help work on some additional training. I'm also the ADA coordinator for Greater Fort Wayne, Inc. And one of the things we've expanded into here recently is I will actually do workplace and business assessments and to let them know what they're doing correctly. And to let them know what they can do a little bit better. And it's a lot of fun to do. It really is, to get into the businesses and look at them. And the best point of all, because I work for the Chamber of Commerce, quote unquote, everything that I do in the community is free. We never bill anybody for the work that I do. My job is partially funded by the AWS Foundation. and the remainder is funded by the investors in Greater Fort Wayne and the members of our Chamber of Commerce. And I'm very proud to be able to do this on a daily basis. I'm going to talk briefly about some of the funding things that we've used in the past and funding ideas we'll use again this year. I've got a list here of what we did last year. We reached out first off to the AWS Foundation, which is a fantastic organization here that serves our community, and applied for what they called a Mighty Money grant, which helped to fund our billboard campaign last year. We also reached out to my employer, Greater Fort Wayne, who threw some money in to help us with the PSA program that we put together. We also received assistance from Metro. Best description for Metro is they're an organization that they do a lot of training for local businesses on equal employment opportunity. And then also if there are difficulties, they're the organization that gets in after the fact to help figure out exactly, how things can be improved. They helped us with our funding. The Allen County Commissioners, a wonderful group here in Fort Wayne and Allen County that actually helped to fund part of the PSA program as well. And then we also were given a grant by the Work to Include group that helped us to finish our funding. The key to funding is just simply having the connections. And that is making sure that you're talking with the people in your community, whether it's the local foundations, whether it is the local county commissioners or the city organizations, because there's money there. If you simply ask, there are usually funds available for those types of projects in your particular area. You can also look to local businesses that currently employ people with disabilities. Those who have had some success with it want to continue to help others learn from them, and they could possibly make donations to your organization or to your campaign. And then, of course, you need to look at the organizations that support people with disabilities, whoever they may be. There are many in our community, and they support us in many ways, not only financially, but little things like the League here in Allen County and Fort Wayne. Because our Work to Include group is not a 501c3, they stepped up as our financial agent, and they handled the funds for us through their organization to ensure that we could receive the funds legally and appropriately to help fund the campaign. Things we're going to do this year and roll out from the funding that we're working on is the billboard campaign. Those can be expensive, but look and see what options you have, because we found one organization that's going to allow us 15 billboards for roughly $2,500. And we're going to do that again this year. Matter of fact, Luke Labus, who is our face, our model for last year's billboard campaign, is still up here in Fort Wayne on some of those billboards that they didn't need to use it for anything else, so they continue. So we've gotten nearly 12 free months out of that. You need to get connected as well with your radio stations and your TV stations and find out what they have to offer in the community. Justin Klepper and I will be on Primetime 39, our PBS station, October 1st, talking about disabilities employment, talking more about his experience as an employer, and of course, talking about the transportation issues. I'll be on Insight Fort Wayne on our ABC affiliate, talking about disabilities employment. I also have a relationship built up with WOWO Radio. And that gentleman you saw on the poster will be arranging for an interview with myself and Pat Miller, the afternoon talk show host. There's a lot of things available to you through funding and communications. You just simply have to pull people together, get the contacts in. One last thing I'll talk about is how I got involved in Work to Include. I was a table captain back when we did the initial town hall meetings, and I enjoyed that. But I wasn't really active with the group until Luke and Jeff decided they wanted to hold a meeting at my office building, because at the Chamber of Commerce, we make our offices available for groups, and they wanted me to attend. And then they had Susan Rennie on the phone with us. And next thing I knew, I had been recruited to join the Work to Include group. Best thing I ever did. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to work with a group which has grown substantially over the last couple of years. And so much so that we even get alumni like Luke to come back from Indianapolis to help us with events like this. So all we can say is you gotta pool everybody together. You gotta pool your resources, and you just have to look into the community to see what there is to help out. If you have any questions, you can always reach me. It's real simple. Go to the Greater Fort Wayne, the GFW website. My picture is on there, and my link with my email is on there, and I'll be glad to share more ideas with you as you go into your campaign. Susan, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Justin. Just a fantastic example of how to make this work locally and how to reach out and make a difference. Fort Wayne has done an excellent job of networking, bringing county officials, city officials, and business together, again, with people with disabilities and family members to talk about employment and what can happen and what can improve the outcomes locally. So again, everyone wins when everyone's in, right? We deal with the worker shortage, as Justin talked about. We deal with the low unemployment rates for individuals with disabilities. And we make our community a more inclusive place, as Mayor Henry pointed out. I love his comments. These are some of the things that employers were worried about when the ADA was passed now 31 years ago. The accommodations will bankrupt me. I might have to hire people who don't fit the role. My insurance will go through the roof. And once I hire them, I can't fire them. We know after 31 years, none of that's true. And again, we have fact sheets on our website that you can use to make sure people understand that and make sure, as everyone has said today, that employers understand it actually improves their work environment. These are some of our other focused individuals on posters. In Bloomington, we have Upland Brewery and Bob and his supervisor. In Indianapolis, we have Bonnie Bomer and Fiesta, who are at Indiana Disability Rights. And in Terre Haute, we're focusing on Charles Williams at TJ Maxx. So please look for those posters and share those. So some things after today, we hope you do. Get some people together, community members, if you don't currently have a coalition in your area. If you do, you can go to our website and connect with the team leader there, or fill out a volunteer form and ask to be part of that. Again, download the materials from our work site or our website. They're there for you to use. And then distribute them via your networks. But also, we'd love to see you on our Facebook page, our Twitter, Instagram. We'll be sharing lots of social media in October, and we would love it if you would help us by sharing those on your networks. So with that, I wanted to just again say thank you to our presenters today, Kevin, Justin, and Jeff. They did an excellent job, and open it up for questions. And Luke, who's kind of our silent partner on this webinar, is going to tell us what questions we have.
So we don't have any questions at the moment, and I will wait a few minutes to see if any additional questions trickle in. But one question that I do think may be on a lot of people's minds is, Justin during his presentation was talking about using language that speaks to the employer and kind of minimizes their fears. In particular, as we're entering into October in these campaigns and around messaging, when we talk about disability accommodations, can you guys speak to the ability for people with disabilities to now work remote and how they've requested some of these accommodations for decades, and it's become the norm and the mainstream now for almost every employer across the country?
Justin, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, Luke, I don't know that I have that much more to add. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head that we've had folks that have been asking for, work from home options, have been asking about you know, different accommodations. And,
I would prefer that.
you know, the reality is that employers, their fear went away because they had to do it. And so, you know, I would encourage you to use that as an example to say, you can try new things. You can try new things and see how it works. And at the end of the day, if you're finding out that it doesn't work, okay, then change it. But if it works, then look at all that you just gained. You know, challenging employers to think outside the box and to think strategically in how they're going to grow their organization is going to be key. And working from home, providing those kinds of accommodations is a great way to do that.
And working from home also saves the employer money on the bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And it helps individuals with disabilities who have transportation challenges. If they can't get to work, but they can work from home, then you know that saves everybody. And being the transportation guy, I can tell you that transportation is a big issue for people with disabilities getting to work. So you know, we do what we can, but at the end of the day, if someone can work from home and not have to worry about the ride, all the better.
And I would just add, the other thing that the pandemic is doing at this point in time is we're having to look at that for more people. We don't know how many people will have long-term impact from COVID. And so there will be more people who might need those kinds of accommodations in the future than there are now.
And I would just encourage all employers and service providers to take advantage of the lessons from COVID, because I believe that there's a great opportunity to kind of shift disability employment. So I encourage all of you to embrace the new business model for employment for people with disabilities.
Susan, thanks to Peggy Welsh, who's on the webinar, for her super suggestion that we have a focus campaign like the ones for the communities around the state, targeted at state government. Yes,
and I think that is something that the state of Indiana is really looking at and is committed to hiring a more diverse workforce, and we'll be, I think, soon hearing more about that.
But Susan, what I was talking about, or still to make it clear, is there's these campaigns in Fort Wayne for the month of October and other places. Could there be a focus with posters and things on I don't know if other agencies have a hub like we do at FSSA that would kind of promote disability hiring, you know, during the focus month of October. And I would think Kara would have thought about that, and I'm sure she has. So I've got it on my calendar to follow up with her next week. We'll just
That's
ask.
lovely. We'd love to, but we can customize these posters and the social media. We can customize those so that we can focus on state employees. I think that would be fabulous. Anything else, Luke?
I'm not seeing any further questions from attendees in the chat at this time.
Well, again, you can get a hold of us by checking the website. We have all of our emails on there, Jeff's emails, mine, Dr. Rogan. And we just are really excited about getting the word out. So we will put this webinar as a focus on our front page too, so you can share it with more people so we can get the word out even broader than the people that have been able to be with us today. So thank you all. And again, thanks to my co-presenters today.